Hi, this is Darren Winston here on Reasonable Doubt to discuss the topic of evolution with one of its leading critics, Deanna Krug. Deanna, why don't you start us off? What exactly is your issue with the theory of evolution?
Do I need to have an issue other than the fact that there is no evidence? I mean, think about all the things that have been around for a long time and didn't evolve. And all the things that people thought were extinct but are not. Science can be wrong. We haven't seen any new species, and many animals from 100 million years ago still look the same today, so evolution hasn't really done anything now, has it?
Okay, first of all, whether something is extinct or not is utterly irrelevant to whether or not life evolves. That just means an animal thought to be gone has managed to survive. Second, a thing naturally ideally suited to its environment with a large existing population and no new pressures or niches has no causative element to drive it to further evolve. More importantly though, what do you mean there is no evidence? It is there in great abundance. Dickens, bring up the slide please. What we have here is the fossil record with numerous transitional fossils showing how human life has evolved through time, from many of our earlier ancestors on to us. Is this sufficient evidence? What would you call it, if not that?
Those are just different types of species, nothing new. Even today some humans have long faces. Now prove the claim instead of showing pictures and explaining stuff.
How do you deny this? Perhaps it would help to see what these things actually look like and where they are found in time. Bring out the next slide please. You can see how appearances have changed over time. This is a result of the selection process in evolution. Things do not just pop into existence. It takes millions of years.
It's still just fossils, nothing more, nothing less. You still can't prove evolution. You are just engaging in guesswork.
Even if you doubt the fossil record, which is an absurd thing to doubt, given its clarity. Are you aware of the evidence in genetics that provided definitive and indisputable proof?
Again, it's just fossils. You still can't prove the claim and test the claim to see if it actually happened. You believe it because you were told it was true.
Nobody with any sense accepts something this big on say-so. And as you can see, we have fossil record evidence demonstrating visible change through time. But that is not all. As I mentioned earlier, we have genetic evidence in the form of ERVs that prove common descent beyond the shadow of a doubt. You see, inside our bodies are relics of viruses. These viruses did not infect us. They infected our ancestors, sometimes millions of years ago. Through the process of reverse transcription, they convert their RNA into DNA. That DNA is then randomly inserted into one of the host's chromosomes. Slide please. If that happens to be one of your germ cells, which is what makes sperm or eggs, it is passed on to future descendants from that point forward. Like so. Next slide. What this means is that our genetic line is traceable through these little third-party viral invaders. If evolution is false, then we share no common ancestor with modern apes, which means we would not have the same ERV markers in us both, as there is no common ancestor between us both from which to inherit them. But if evolution, and common descent, is true, then both apes and man must share the same ERV markers in our genetic code in the exact same places. As you can see here, from one part of one of our genomes, lo and behold, we have a match. That little line indicated by the red arrows there is an ERV.
That doesn't mean anything. It could easily be a coincidence.
A coincidence maybe. Easily one. No, not so much. The mathematical odds are 1 in 3 billion, still, it could be. Right? But here we have more. Can you guess the odds of it happening twice, without common descent as the simplest and most reasonable explanation? The odds of two viruses inserting at perfectly matched locations of different species are 1 in 4 quintillion 500 billion. To put that into perspective, that is equivalent to you and a friend randomly picking out the same grain of sand from all the world's deserts and beaches. But wait, there is more. This brings the odds of coincidence up to 1 in 4 octillion 500 septillion. To put that into perspective, that is like throwing snake eyes at craps, then getting dealt a 2-card blackjack, then winning on black 13 in roulette, then being dealt a royal flush in poker, each 3 times in a row. But that isn't all. There are more. When we get to 5, we're at the odds of you and a friend picking the same water molecule out of all the oceans on Earth, which is lower odds than 1 in 1 times 10 to the 40th power. Basically the odds are lower than the number creationists like to use when they claim something to be impossible. However, there are more than that. There are 16 such instances of human endogenous retroviruses having exact placement matches with chimps. I'll spare you the numeric odds of this, but that is just the K-class viruses. There are 98,000 DRs in the human genome, most of which match the same exact locations between human, chimp, gorilla, orangutan, and macaques, an outcome that only logically makes sense if all of us had a common ancestor, whose descendants split off into our current varied species. The mathematical probability of our sharing herbs in identical positions so many times, in that instance, is 1 in 1. So what is really most likely here? I say evolution. Are you convinced yet? Is this enough evidence for you? Do you see now why the theory of evolution enjoys 99.87% support amongst all Earth and life scientists?
No. Fossils are just bones, and any scientist can make up a story using DNA, bacteria, viruses, and compare it to other fossils. But that is all they have, explanations. No evidence.
What do you think they used to come to these explanations? What do you call everything I just showed you?
That is just a story. There is no physical testable evidence. What I mean is, prove it with an example. Use an ape and make it a human. You showed me pictures of viral matches and the fossil record, but no evidence that it happened. We weren't around to know for sure, so it's just a claim. Make it happen. Human into an ape. Ape into human. All you have is a claim. Evolution is just a theory and you can't prove it by demonstrating an ape turning into a human.
Now I get it. You literally have no idea how it works. It takes, generally, millions of years. Our own transition was around 3 million from the last common ancestor up to now. It also isn't like magic. It takes pressures, for resources, mates, predators, or environmental conditions. It takes these mutations being selected for over generations. As these mutations and pressures result in the diffusion of the best traits through the population, these small changes add up over time into big ones. A better eye, a bigger toe, a better brain. These small changes are reflected in the fossil record, and the definitive ancestry shown through the genetic code and proven conclusively through the study of herbs.
That is stupid. You can't prove that. You weren't there. If the environment mattered, then things like whales wouldn't move when weather changes, but they keep moving. Put a penguin from the desert in the North or South Pole and see what happens. Put a bear in the South Pole and see what happens. The environment doesn't matter.
The Dunning-Kruger fallacy is strong here. First, what do you think fossil evidence means? And why do you think virtually every relevant scientist in the world disagrees with you?
Fossils just demonstrate that a species is dead. They can disagree all they want, but they can't prove it and they can't make it a reality. If they can't prove the theory instead of saying genetics this and that, and they can't show me an ape becoming a man, then you believe it by say so. Example, phones were a scientific theory but it became a reality and now is no longer a theory.
First off, I don't think you know what a theory is in science. A hypothesis gets to the theory stage when it has withstood all attempts at undermining and discrediting it. It must likewise have an abundance of evidence for it and demonstrate predictive value in outcomes. Evolution has met this burden through a variety of fields, and in terms of predictive value, they can determine what they will find at varying geologic layers, and their contributions to biology are now used in cancer research. As far as phones go, all the theories that contributed to the development of that product are still referred to as theories.
No. Until you put a human into a lab and make it into a hominid, you've proven nothing.
First of all, Humans are hominids. That classification includes not just all the other species of great apes, but ourselves as well. But it looks like we're almost out of time. I hope at least that what I've shown you today makes you think about this issue later. Before we go, let me ask you, where did you read about evolution? Where did you study science?
Well, I didn't look at your so-called evidence because it doesn't matter. It isn't an ape in a lab becoming a human. I've looked at other things on the internet, and fossils and genetics just don't matter. There is no evidence. It's a waste to read about science to learn about a theory that is wrong. I offered to let you prove the theory by turning an ape into a human and you couldn't do it. So your theory is unproven and I am right and all the scientists are wrong. All they have are a theory and a bunch of explanations based on genetics and the fossil record that prove nothing, until they can change an ape into a person in a lab before my eyes. They have absolutely nothing. Just unsubstantiated claims and the stories they build around them. I don't know why they are all choosing to be wrong and not accept the Bible, but that is their problem, not mine. The scientists are wrong, the Bible and I are right. When you can show me an ape become a man in a lab, I will change my mind. Until then, there is no evidence at all. Thank you for having me. Goodbye.
Well, that was Mrs. Deanna Krug, ladies and gentlemen, demonstrating to us all why learning about a theory before disregarding it is important, even if that was not her intent. This has been another episode of Reasonable Doubt put together by the Church of the Basement Dragon. If you enjoyed this episode, I hope you'll follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, to find more content to make you think, make you laugh, or maybe help you win an argument or two. Thank you for watching, but most importantly, thank you for thinking.